Hi fam, it's BB. I've tried to film this installment number 4 twice already, so this is number 3. And we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I wasn't feeling right, or I don't know. The environment wasn't right. Here we are. Let's go. Let's start. I have a lot of decks, so not in general, like specifically set aside for this video. I don't know if I'm going to get through all of them. Let's try. Number 1, Pagan Otherworlds by Uusi. This is a well-loved deck for good reason. I believe I got it when it came out. I still have the moon phase cards in this deck, even though I do not know how to use them. Sorry about the sirens. I don't really follow the moon phases very much. I kind of only know that I can't sleep very well on a full moon. And I don't really know what that means, but it intrigues me. I just feel like I have so many interests and there's not always time or energy to learn something new. I think that my study is more involved in tarot and astrology and not necessarily more pagan. I don't even know if moon cycles are a pagan thing. But, you know, like the Wheel of the Year or things like that have not been part of any practice of mine. I barely have any practices, to be honest. And maybe part of me starting this channel is so that I can kind of be more conscious and intentional in the time that I spend on these things, because I love them and I want to spend more time on them. I'm not talking about this deck at all. It's very beautiful. It's minimalist. It reminds me of the Anima Mundi tarot in its artwork and color palette a little bit. I think that was darker and cooler rather than this being kind of more warm neutrals, but it still has like that linen look and the painting. It's cards like this that made me fall in love with this deck. Same with those. The people, not so much, but the aesthetic, yes. I love any deck with swans. I do have an affinity for the sword suit and the cup suit. I have a lot of fire energy. I mean, I'm pretty even in my birth chart, but I do have a lot of fire energy, but I don't know, the wands are not my favorite. Usually it's the swords, and that makes sense. I'm an air sign. And then the cups, which makes sense because of my Cancer Venus that I have to mention in every video because it has, I don't know, it's so influential on who I am, I guess. And I adore that placement. It's in the 12th house too, so it's very kind of spoopy and complicated, complex, I guess. The next deck is a deck that everyone I see on YouTube calls Orien, and like, is that the person's name? Because I read this and see Orion, especially because it's like a compass and like stars and the galaxy, and I just think of Orion, the constellation, and Orion's belt. Does anyone have more information than I do about this? Like, have I not read the guidebook thoroughly enough? Let me know. I love the edges on this. Best ever. Red is my favorite color, and I love a glam moment. So this is a gorgeous deck. It's a very Instagram friendly deck, and I've heard wonderful things about the guidebook. I don't know if you can see how good the colors are in this, but they are so good. I think this is a really good client deck. I have not used it a ton, but it's decks like this that are so universal, you know? You can just, there's not a lot to make someone feel kind of excluded or disconnected to take them out of the experience and the reading. And I like that about this deck. I also really love rich imagery. I love very stylized imagery. This kind of reminds me of what are the two graphic artists that head up the whole Harry Potter franchise aesthetically? Like, they're not the art directors, but the designer, you know what I'm saying, like the the graphic designers for anything that like has anything that's like marketing, right? Like that's like paper or books or anything like that. Like the designers that do that, it reminds me of them a little bit. They have this really cool name. It's like 2 words. It's like Luna Luna or something, but that's not what it is. But it reminds me of them a little bit. Their stuff is a little more soft, but there's like a mystical, magical, and I really love that the backdrop, can I speak? I can speak. The backdrop is, it looks like a galaxy to me. It's like a universe, right? It looks like space. It's like the animals of Earth are cosmic beings too. I don't know. So that's the Oriens. That's what I call it. Please let me know what you think. It says, may the stars guide you in the dark. Like, come on, help me out. Somebody tell me, please. Because I feel like the only person who pronounces it that way. Okay, next up. Old Reliable for me. I really wish I could remember, because I started collecting decks probably 5 years ago, and just so much has happened in the past 5 years, I think, for everyone, not specifically me, that I don't know. I don't remember how I got into these things or found them, but I found the Spolia and had to have it immediately. Maybe I had started following people on Instagram who were readers, and this is such an easy deck for me to read. I've used it many times with people I knew and people I didn't know, and it really speaks to me. I think this may have been the first collage deck that I ever owned, if not one of the first. The other one being probably the Lioness Oracle Tarot. This deck feels spiritual but grounded. Like elemental but sophisticated. Psychedelic but classical. Classical is a word that I say a lot, or classic. I think that's what I've noticed when I've shown my decks so far. But it makes sense, because if I'm attracted to that kind of imagery, then we're congruent with who I am as a person. This deck does have the elements as cards as well, and as you saw in the Aries card, zodiac signs. It's just a wonderful, beautiful deck, and I don't think it's in print anymore, but they may print another one. I don't know. I thought I heard rumors of that. Please do not take that as fact, because I don't want you to look for it and then be mad at me that it's not true. I may have dreamt it. This was created by 2 women. I think Jessica May and, does it say on the book? Jen May, I'm sorry. And it says it's written by Jessa Crispin. I think I follow both of them on Instagram. Wow, this one's all messed up. I used to read reverse. Wow. I used to read reversals, and now I don't really. I'm sure I'll go back to it at some point, but it just kind of hasn't been the vibe lately. One of my favorite lovers cards. Yeah, this is the Spolia. Cool. It's the first edition. I don't know if there's any other editions, but I know it's the first edition. This one is so good. I used to have it's the Pagan Cats. I used to have the Considerate Cat tarot, and it was so cute and so delicate, and it had some cards that I really liked, but this one is just so much more, I don't know, evocative. Like, there's so much more going on, and it's so much better at like world building, because I don't think like that was the point of the Considerate Cat tarot, you know. I love using this deck, and I love the imagery. Almost every card is one that brings me so much joy. I love cats. I think it's really funny, the stereotype of people who like metaphysics or New Age or tarot are cat people, and I hate, and I know that's a strong word, but just like stay with me here. I hate being a stereotype. I love going against the statistic. I love being the oddball. I love being in a classroom and being told something and then being able to prove my professor or teacher wrong just based off of my own experience or my own feelings. I love that so much. Maybe it's the Gemini in me, but I am a cat girl through and through, and I don't have a lot of cat things. One time, it was Christmas time, and my cousin was gonna get me something, and she was like, "You like cats, right?" And I just wanted to be like, whatever it is, don't get it for me, because when you have a strong aesthetic and you want to be, I don't know, very stylish, or you have a high taste level, like most cat things, in my opinion, are not the greatest. Just because I love cats or I love Disney doesn't mean that I want my house or my room or my clothes necessarily to reflect that or be a billboard for it, or just like, I don't know, like if I could design, I guess Disney's a whole other thing, because if I could design Disney, I don't know, houseware and clothing, it might be a different story, but it's just not up to par, and neither are cat things. I don't want anything with a cat emblem necessarily in my house. But when it comes to the Pagan Cat deck, I get all my cat aesthetic and art that I need. It's amazing. Who has that deck? Please shout out if you like that deck. Also, it's so good. Like, it's such a good reader. Okay. Next one. Ethereal Visions Luna Edition. I don't know. I think partially why I've started over this video a couple times is because of this deck. I don't know what to say about it. I don't know what to say about the creator, about the experiences that people have had with this creator, with the original deck, which I also own, and you'll see in a different video. I support the critics of these decks, and I also empathize with any negative experience they had with the creator or the process of the Kickstarter. Do I love the art of this deck? Yes, I do. And the first one. And I kind of, that's the only like opinion that I think that I will assert. Am I glad that this deck has more diversity and inclusion? Absolutely. I love the silver holographic like foiling. I like the changes in the images. I like that these have more contrast than the original. I am a fan of Art Nouveau. The illustrations themselves feel kind of 70s, the people. Did I show you? Oh yeah, it has like a holographic edging too. Overall, I do think this is a better deck than the original. Agape, one of the extra cards, one of the Greek forms of love. I think there's like 7 or 6 or something. Comment below if you know how many types of love there are in Greece, in Greek ancient times, in ancient Grecian times. Yeah. I have read about them before, but I can never retain them. At least not all of them. The colors, like, not only is there more racial diversity and like body diversity in this deck, but the colors are more contrasted, which I like. But I don't know, I've thought about getting rid of the first one, that I can't. This feels like a very stereotypical, kind of dated, I don't know, depiction of a native, you know? But, and then it feels like everyone seems to, I don't know, like this hair has black outline and then this hair doesn't, and they're both blonde though, so it looks like this was updated to be darker, and then like he didn't touch this. I don't know. I'm not trying to be critical. This is like a beautiful deck. I love the greenery on the outside, but you want it to be consistent, right? Overall, beautiful deck. Ethereal Visions Luna Edition. What do we have next? This is a new deck for me. I am a like pedestrian follower of human design, and that's kind of my only connection to I Ching, because human design incorporates I Ching, but other than that I don't know a ton about it. So I'm looking forward to using this deck more so that I can read more about I Ching. But the artwork and the black borders of this is like what really got me. The backs are beautiful. They're moody watercolors. I just love to see this on my table with other decks, you know. It has kind of a description of the element combination of the I Ching and then also the I Ching symbol. I love that one. I'm from an area that gets a lot of fires during the summer, unfortunately, and it just reflects, this is what it looks like in the canyon when this happens, and it really resonates. I love the color scheme. I feel like I say that a lot in decks that I have, but I mean, isn't that the doorway? I guess we're all attracted to different things, right? And like we have different priorities when it comes to deck, or different things that kind of catch our attention first. I love color. I love deliberate use of color, strategic use of color. And this deck is so good at it. So this is the I Ching, the Visionary I Ching cards. like this. So naughty, so good. A lot of the cards have kind of hidden imagery, or I don't know if you'd call it so hidden, but I really, really enjoy it. I think I'm gonna use this a lot, actually, in the future, in the moments to come. Okay, this next one is one of my favorite decks, one of my first decks that I ever got, the Abyssal Tarot by Shelly Corbet. This is her photography. I don't know if she took any of these with the intention of using it for a deck, or if she took them and then created the deck. Not a huge fan of the backs, but it does show the different elements, the wands, the swords, the pentacles, and the cups. I don't know if you put them together, like they're all different. And I don't know if you put them together in a certain way that like it shows a map or something. I've never tried to do that. And then like they're also like really flimsy and thin. So I'm really not a fan of the cardstock, but the finish, the images, even the borders don't really bother me. The font's like, it's not offensive, but it's also not my favorite, but I can't really think of anything that would be more appropriate. I guess like I would appreciate kind of a Times New Roman in all caps, like that would be fine, but then maybe it wouldn't feel as, again, like elemental. I know I said that about a deck earlier in the video. It also has, I never even really noticed this, and I look at this deck a lot. It also has the wands, swords, pentacles, etc. These are all underwater photos. I don't know if I mentioned that. Very moody, very sensual, a little BDSM. Very emotional for me. Kind of cool to do reversals with this deck, right? Because it might have a different meaning if you're seeing this upside down. And like, that might sound very basic. Like, of course, everything has a different meaning when you're looking at it upside down. And it's like, but does it though? Because you might just be looking at an image upside down and going, this is an upside down image. And then when you're in water though, there's not really a right side up direction. And you could be looking at something that like, it's like you're in the womb, right? Like you could be looking at an image and it could have a completely different meaning. If it's oriented a different way. Because it doesn't look like, oh, it needs to be this way, or it needs to be this way, or it needs to be this way. They could have been taken at all of these angles. This deck feels very 90s, like late 90s, early 2000s. And it's a time that had a specific kind of style. Maybe not, I mean, yeah, like photography wise, like I used to have a fairies deck, or not deck, fairies book that kind of looked a lot like this that my grandma gave me. It had these color schemes and kind of like this type of saturation, and it was from that time period. And I remember my mom's kind of style back then and her interior design style, so it really reminds me of a certain time in my childhood. This is a beautiful reader too. I love it. I think this would be a good like shadow deck, a good sensual deck, like relationship deck, a good inner work. Not for people who don't like nudity though, right? Okay, the She-Wolf is next. This is by, I don't know if she calls herself Serpentfire. I know that's her Instagram, and I know that she has a Serpentfire tarot. this was very, like, this reminds me of, like, I don't know if there's an aesthetic for tarot that's like a Pinteresty tarot deck, but this feels Pinteresty to me. Not necessarily a negative or a positive or anything. The edging's pretty. A rose gold. But I feel like this is of a certain era too. Like, this reminds me of 2013. And this probably came out after 2013, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. I really like the intention of this deck, and I really like the kind of 70s vibe. I like the nude figures, but they all are kind of thin and mostly white. Not everybody, but it just would be nice to see more variety. Oh, that's cool. I forgot there was a pregnant person. And I mean, I don't know, this is probably all the creators' friends, you know? But I feel like nowadays creators are feeling a responsibility not to just show their own experiences necessarily, but to be really mindful and responsible. I know I just said responsibility, but be responsible in the decks that they create and appeal to not just the people who look like them or have the backgrounds that they do. But these images on their own are really cool. I don't think I would use this deck for like a big spread, but maybe like a 3-4 card spread. And like, see, this is all like, I feel like these are all people that have modeled for her or the photographer, but like, then we have Bowie. And that's kind of confusing. But I guess it's a Divine Masculine card. Is this this is how little I've used this deck. Is this the Emperor card, or did I already pass that, or have you seen it? Or is that like an extra card? Ooh, I do love this Lovers card. I like the duality here. I like when my Gemini is represented accurately or well. It's still a sick deck. It's still really fun and cool. And that's why I still have it, because like I said, I don't use it a lot. And then I wonder, like, should I be getting rid of this? And then I look at it and then I go, definitely not. You should not get rid of this. Yeah, I think the Divine Feminine and the Divine Masculine are the Empress and the Emperor. Like, even just these two. Very good. Very good. Well done, Serpentfire. Okay, it's by Devaney Amber Wolfe. Okay. But she also did the Serpentfire tarot, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. So I'm sitting on the floor and my foot is completely asleep. It's buzzing with numbness. So I'm gonna rearrange myself. Okay, what time is it? 28 minutes, okay. I definitely was too ambitious, and I guess I have more to say than I thought. The next deck is the Fantastic Menagerie Tarot. This is the 2nd edition by Baba Studios. I had the 1st edition because I fell in love with the deck after seeing it on Katie Flowers' channel. And then when they came out with the 2nd one, I didn't have enough money to get the deluxe edition, but I got the standard one and I love it. I love the backs so much more than the originals. Also, I still have the original deck. I don't have the original guidebook, and the 2nd edition guidebook I'm keeping for myself, obviously. But if you know anyone, or if you yourself are really wanting this deck, hit me up, because I am selling the 1st edition. Like Katie says, these images have a lot of humor and wit, and I'm really excited to have the guidebook now because I can see some of that in the images themselves, but I'm looking forward to reading more about it. So I used to have this book when I was a kid called, oh, this is so beautiful. I love vintage illustration, and I don't know if this is Edwardian, Victorian, Georgian, but it's speaking my language and I love it so much. It makes me so happy. So as I was saying, I had this book called Fables, and I think it was Aesop's Fables. Well, I know it was Aesop's Fables. I don't know if it was called Aesop's Fables. And it was like this. It was anthropomorphic. Oh, I'm so proud of myself because I could not say that word the other day when I was trying to film this video, and it was so embarrassing and it was so insanely frustrating. But yeah, anthropomorphic animals. And I just, this illustration really reminds me of that book. I wonder who illustrated that book. I guess I'll look it up. Did anyone have that book? I think you can still get it now. I need to give it to my friend. I have a friend who is having a baby, and I think that her baby needs it. It's so good. I can't say no to decks like this. I get that there are people who are like, ew, what is this? And I'm like, sign me up. This is so good. Is it because I grew up on Disney and this is just like, I don't know, like Robin Hood? It's beautiful. I'm grateful. It has foiling. I don't know if you can tell. I wish it had some sort of edging, but I guess since it's white, it has white borders. It's not a big deal. This reminds me of like bed knobs and broomsticks. I don't know. Or like Mr. Toad. Fantastic Menagerie. So good, too good, so grateful. I love my collection. Okay, excuse me. Cosmic Cycles Tarot, limited edition. This was a Kickstarter. I just saw on Facebook that the pre-orders for this, like the regular version, is gonna start in June. So you can get this deck. I don't know if it's gonna look the same. Hold on, I just dropped it. I don't know if like it's gonna be edged like this or what, but because this was the limited edition, like I don't know if it'll be gilded, but so this deck, if you haven't noticed, is a big departure from most of my decks. It's more youthful, it's more cartoonish. It reminds me of like Disney cartoons that I used to watch as a kid, or ones that my brother watched when he was little. He's like 8 years younger than me. I love this concept, and I backed this because it follows the stories of different people through their lives. Like every card is associated with someone, like this group of people. Most of them. I don't think we follow her as I'm saying that. Yeah, but we follow like these people's life and what happens, and I believe like they get divorced and the kid is affected, and wow, relatable. But there's a warmth. I love the use of light and shadow. Like that is so rad, and I don't get to see that very often in like a tarot deck. I like that it's modern. It also reminds me of Sailor Moon, maybe because it just has this like girly filter, and I don't really mean like a literal filter, but a girly gaze, I guess. And I really like that. Like, I feel like this is the type of art, and I think it's really well done. I'm not saying like that the skill level is low, because it's not at all. It's beautiful, and I could not do this. But I think it reminds me of like the type of art that a girl that I knew in junior high like doodled, and she was really talented, and I loved her stuff so much, and so I like identified with it because it was like our experience, right? It was like our perspective, and so yeah, it's a rich world. I like world building, like I said before. Decks. And it's so encompassing. There's so many different experiences within these like characters' lives that maybe you've had yourself, or someone you know has had, or maybe you haven't. Like, I've never been in physical therapy and learned how to walk again, but it's something that relates to the world as it is now, and it's a concept that we can all kind of apply to other things about our lives, and like dedication, etc. Like, that's how these cards are. They just bring up so much, and it's like my hug deck. It's the sweetest. Like, it has a lot of shadow in it, you know, like it does conquer or tackle like difficult issues. But who doesn't want to see a card like this? You know? It's not meditative in the sense that like you dive into it and you get lost. It's meditative in the sense that like it's warm and welcoming, and these people feel like your friends, or like your favorite cartoon, you know, and you're so invested. They did such a wonderful job. I'm really glad that this deck was successful. That's the Cosmic Cycles. Okay, 37. Should we stop here? I have the Lubanko. No, we won't. Okay, we'll stop. Yeah, that's part 4. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being curious. Thanks for being my friend. My mom's coming. I gotta go.